Hey everyone, Rhodes Perry from the Imagine Belonging Substack. And I wanted to share a lesson, I guess not lesson, an area of growth that I had last week. If you're on my listserv, the Belonging at Work listserv, you may have already been aware that I shared a number of book covers for my next book. And I reached out. I wanted to know what folks thought of the book in its current inception, last week. And at that time, the book was titled Roads Less Traveled, a memoir and somatic leadership guide to real transformation. Now, the overwhelming response, you can see all of the book covers in this actual article below the video. And the clear winner was the third one, the one that's at the bottom of the image. And it seemed to resonate with the audience. So my audience is typically business executives, entrepreneurs like myself, and spiritual leaders. Right? This is truly who the book is for. And while I expected, a variety of feedback on the cover, right? Like, I don't like this font. I like this font. This is what I like about the images and what could be an even better if. So I was prepared for all of that. What I wasn't prepared for, though, was feedback that was given to the title. And there's a fellow author who is here on Substack. You know who you are, so thank you for reaching out. And they're a fellow author, and they were generous in sharing this feedback. And so this is what they wrote me. They said, "Something my publisher said has stuck with me for years. A literal title will outsell an abstract one tenfold, even if the book is garbage." Even if the book is garbage. So, and he goes on to say, or this person goes on to say, "He showed me two books in the same genre, one with a literal title and one with a catchy abstract title. Both were nonfiction. The better book by a long shot, better by quality, had an overthought, catchy title, and it didn't sell. The literal title one sold 10 times and was reprinted. And it seems like it was reprinted in a number of different languages." So here's what I want to clarify. Like, well, selling 1 million copies or more would be a welcome byproduct of the book. And I receive that if that's a part of my life journey. And my primary goal for this book is to support leaders that are open to new approaches to move through this era shift that we're living through. And this is a big time. There's lots of changes. So, this was a calling that I had of how can I show up and be supportive in this moment? And this particular feedback from this author struck a chord for me because I have my own personal experience. At my back, I've published 2 books already. 8 years ago, I published Belonging at Work. And this particular book, literal book title, it's very clear about who I serve. And that clarity drew the right people in who were curious, like, how do we organize our culture around this emotional outcome, right? This North Star, right? So that's how people found their way to the book. And people are still buying it today. It's still helpful, even in these times. Now, my second book, Imagine Belonging, the title of this Substack, we know what this is about. It's about visualizing a future that we long for, one that we know that we are worthy of and is within reach. We just need to be clear on what that is and imagine what it feels like. Well, the book title is poetic, and I love poetic book titles. And it didn't perform as well as Belonging at Work, right? It created some friction for the people who could benefit from it the most to actually find the message. So, because of this, because of my own experience and this very kind feedback from a fellow author, I took the feedback to heart. And it reminds me that you can always change your mind. That's the title of what I'm talking about today. You can always change your mind, and it also reveals an important truth, and that truth is that creativity flows from fluidity, not rigidity. Right? I'll say that again. Creativity flows from fluidity. Fluidity, right? Being flexible, going with the flow. Not rigidity, not being stuck in a certain way, and not being open to the creative insights of other people when they're helpful and when you ask for the feedback. So from this particular state, it reminds me of something that somatic practices make available too. We want to be in choice with life. We want to have aliveness, and we're always in choice. And when we're in choice with life, that means that if we make a choice, we can always change our minds, right? And this truth is an essential leadership skill that I offer in my practice. Well, I desired that poetic book title, right? I loved it. Roads Less Traveled. That sounds great. I get it. I know it's part memoir. I know it's a methodology. I know it's a journey that you're going to go on. That title wasn't in service to my readers, right? The very people who could benefit from the core message of this book. So I chose to view this feedback not as a threat to my own creative insights or my intuition, but rather as an opportunity for deeper connection with my audience, right? To be in better service with perhaps people like yourself, right? Like you're here, you listen, you watch. Chances are you're excited about this book. I hope so. And I found a bit of humor to get to this place in my creative process that, I'm often guiding leaders and inviting them to consider using specific language when they need to pivot priorities, shift directions, maybe come up with new strategies or frameworks, and then to communicate these changes effectively to the people that they're leading, right? So I give them language like, based on this new information, I reevaluated my position. I've learned something new that makes me rethink my earlier decision. Or, hey, I may have gotten this wrong. Let me explain how I'm shifting my view, right? So these are just some words that sometimes help leaders in those difficult moments. And now here, I find myself, kind of trying to practice what I'm preaching, basically. And this practice of changing my mind, it isn't reserved just for creative pursuit or work goals. It truly applies in all aspects of our lives, right? Like, I know it might sound cliche, right? And, if you can change your mind, you can change your life. If you can get your mind right, you can get your life right. I mean, these are sayings that have been out there for a long time, and there's truth to them. And even for me, after completing my manuscript, that was close to 70,000 words, and finishing the first round of edits, like uh, creativity comes from fluidity, right? So I thought I had the title, and I changed my mind. I changed my mind because that title wasn't in the service of my readers. I lost sight of who the book was for. And so I reorganized. I reminded myself what the reader statement was. I reminded myself of the core message and what the book promised. And in doing all this, did it require a tough transition of doubting myself? Yeah, there was a little bit of that. And it also caused me to draw up my own courage to truly listen to my intuition. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I did. There's some research out of the Queensland Brain Institute, if you've heard of that. And most people, right, from their research, have found, these researchers have found that most people change their minds after realizing that they've made some kind of error, and they want to offer a chance to improve. And while there's no wrong way that, if you're writing a book, there's no wrong way. It's your book. You can do whatever you want, right? So I'm not viewing this kind of original title as an error in my initial choice. That was a style decision, but it was based on what I wanted, right? And I often teach in my practice, let's shift from the golden rule to the platinum rule, right? Golden rule is like treat others in a way in which I want to be treated, right? So applying that rule is like, well, I'm going to keep the title because I like it, right? And I could do that, but who's the book for? It's not for me, right? It's for you. It's for other readers, right? So I'm practicing the platinum rule, treating others in a way in which they want to be treated, not me. And I need to know a little bit about them. Fortunately, I know a little bit about my audience, right? And the title wasn't it, so this author was right. So thanks to that feedback, I became more aware and then quickly adjusted to realign with what I'm called to do and to support people that are in my world. So you might want to know what it's called. So if you're curious about that, without further ado, drum roll please, right? The book is called Lead Embodied, Roads Less Traveled to Resilient Leadership, right? And what I wanted to ultimately do with that title is communicate we're in a paradigm shift. We're trying to encourage you and other leaders to move away from performing some kind of leadership to simply being yourself, to being the leader that you're called to be in this moment, being the leader you're called to be in this season of your life. So it's intended to remind the reader that true leadership resilience is not found in standard corporate playbooks or conventional career advice. I call those the main roads, but in a more personal and often unconventional journey of embodiment. And all that means is taking an abstract concept or an approach. I want to lead with courage. I want to be a resilient leader. I want to be a leader that creates spaces of belonging so people can perform better. I want to be a leader that cultivates peace, right? Like whatever you're organizing around, that might feel abstract. So this book is a way for you to practice that way of being, to radiate resilience, belonging, peace, whatever it is that you want to lead, your style. You're radiating that from embodying it, like really building that practice from the inside, radiating it out. That's what it's about. So the title shares 3 promises. One is authenticity. You're leading embodied, right? You're leading as the whole person that you are, body, mind, and spirit, not just your intellect. And then you're also, the second promise of the book is courage. You're going to take roads less traveled. You're going to be doing inner work. And that path to embodiment requires leaving the old comfort zones and the status quo, right? It's not for everyone. Yet, if you want sticky transformation, if you know that you are called to be a certain kind of leader right now in this moment, a leader that believes in human rights, a leader that believes in fairness, a leader that believes in respect, a leader that believes in justice, right? Like this is where, our values, our integrity is being tested. And so, the book is a nod to that. It's also a nod to my name. There's a pun in it because it's memoir style writing. I'm sharing a path that I've taken. I'm sharing paths that those that I have coached have taken. And I'm offering a path, a framework for you to take as well. Right. And in that path, there's lots of choices that only you can make on what's going to serve you best. And then there's also a destination, resilient leadership. That defines the tangible result. Like, what are you getting from this? What's the outcome? And it's that ability to withstand all of those pressures that are out there for you now, and all of these new pressures from the chaos that's happening outside of maybe your immediate world, so that you can recover from, chaos that's not your own. You can recover from setbacks, and you can lead with clarity, agency, and more choice in the chaos. You can be in choice with what the next move is, and the next move, and the next move that's in alignment with who you are, right? Who you are called to be in this moment, not who you used to be. So who is it for, right? Like the book is very clearly designed for a triad of leaders. These are folks that are often siloed, yet share a common goal for depth and durability, right? So, of course, we've got business executives. These are folks, like myself, maybe you, facing unprecedented volatility, unprecedented collapse, silent burnout, and they're seeking some kind of edge that goes beyond traditional approaches to leadership development, to coaching, right? Maybe to be bold enough to say, wow, I didn't know I can partner with my body in a way to have more joy and ease in the everyday work, even in this chaotic moment that I'm in right now. So that's audience number 1. Audience number 2, folks like me as well, entrepreneurs. You're navigating the isolation of you're already on roads less traveled. Let's be real. As entrepreneurs, right? This is not for the faint of heart. And so you want some sustainable resilience to continue to grow, to continue to take this beautiful vision of yours and scale it without breaking, right? So this is a path for you. And then of course for spiritual leaders, this is for folks who want to bridge that gap between, deep inner wisdom and the practical demands of, leading an organization and like just legitimizing the approach in the business world, right? So very much called to bring in spirituality in a way that, the business world, at least in the United States, is craving, is hungry for, wants more. So all of this is to say, if you've made it to this part of the video, cool. Thank you so much for your interest in this project. I hope it's helpful for you. If you're also a creative of some sort, you can always change your mind. And so that's what I'm curious right now. I'm curious if you can relate to this. So if you've ever changed your mind, you're human, welcome. I think this is going to be all of us. On if you've changed your mind on an important life decision, maybe it was a creative endeavor, maybe it was a leadership choice point. I would love for you to leave a comment below and let me know, what choice did you have to change your mind on? And when you did that, what new information did you gather to feeling invited, or just affirmed in making that change? And what did you gain? Did you gain something from navigating, from making that shift? So if you'd like support, right? Like this is one of those things where I just want to remind you, you don't have to do this kind of work alone, right? So if you are at a place where you're navigating a choice or a transition in life or at work, then I welcome you to connect with me, right? I'm happy to share the somatic methodology that's featured in the book that comes from the living lineage of the Strozzi Institute, right? I'm happy to offer a path, many paths for you to choose and take from so that you can gain clarity and align with what you really want in this season of your life, to lead in the way that you feel called to in this season of your life. So I've got a button in this article for you to connect directly with me, to get some time on my calendar so that we can explore a little bit more of what you're being called to be, in this season of your life. Who are you being called to be in this season of your life? So I encourage you to go ahead and check that out. Schedule some time with me this month. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, this post comes from the Imagine Belonging Substack with me, Rhodes Perry. It's reader supported, right? So if you like this content, if you want me to carve out more time on my calendar to make more, to be with you in this space, then please consider supporting this particular Substack. Super affordable. I think it's like $8 a month, so you're buying me, a really nice coffee to stay caffeinated, to keep going. I really appreciate that. If you could do that. And as an alternative, grab a copy of Imagine Belonging. Take some of that friction away from that title, that very poetic title. And remember why it was a 2023 Independent Press Award winner, right? It is a vision for you, right? It's a vision for the kind of world that you want to build. It helps you kind of clarify, well, I don't even know what that vision is. Well, get the book. That's what it's about. It takes a look at what we're up against, these different systems of oppression, and it offers a practical guide for you as a leader to start to build spaces of belonging, right, in your own workplace. So you can order a copy of that online as well. So Substack subscription, Imagine Belonging book, leave a comment, and that's love for me. And I hope to see you next week. I'll be here. There's either going to be an article, a Substack Live, maybe something like this where it's both. And I hope you have a really great weekend. And thanks again for tuning in and sharing your feedback. Bye.